So Gran Turismo 7 has finally officially revealed a new car and manufacturer coming to the game very soon. The return of the long-awaited Opel brand. But before we get into this video, I'm trying to get this channel to 70,000 subscribers. So if you want to stay up to date with everything Gran Turismo and motorsport gaming related, then feel free to leave a like, subscribe and turn your notifications on. Anyway, let's get to it. So a few weeks ago we got official posts from both Opel and Vauxhall announcing the Opel/Vauxhall Corsa GSE Vision Gran Turismo, and only in the last few days do we now have official confirmation from Polyphony themselves, both through trailers on their YouTube channel as well as in-game in Gran Turismo 7. Now since this official confirmation, there is one thing to note, is that we only have absolute confirmation that one of these two manufacturers is coming to Gran Turismo 7. And of course that is the Opel brand, with Vauxhall entirely absent. Of course when it came to the actual official reveal by both manufacturers, we saw it badged in both Vauxhall as well as Opel branding. Unfortunately though, in the end it is only the Opel branding that is coming to the game and Vauxhall is entirely absent. However, I do have to admit, with these two companies being so closely aligned, this doesn't seem like too much of a loss, but the return of Opel could mean huge things going forward, with the brand finally back in the game. The possibility of the likes of the Calibra DTM, Astra DTM and more coming to the game is increased of course, but this isn't a certainty. If we of course look back in 2024 with the addition of Skoda, they still only have their Vision Gran Turismo car as an entry inside of Gran Turismo 7. So unfortunately this doesn't officially confirm all of those incredible models returning. Now it is worth noting that the trailer that we saw from Polyphony themselves was much more in detail than what we've seen from the announcement posts by both Opel and of course Vauxhall a few weeks back. We got a much better overall look at the vehicle itself. I do feel overall this is a really cool design. The active aero looks incredible, and when it comes to the sort of hatchback shape with all the aggressive aero bits on it, it kind of gives me Group B rally vibes. But unfortunately there is a massive downfall to this car, and of course it's the fact that it is an electric vehicle, which I feel is going to massively hamper the overall use of the car and of course how much players actually look forward to this thing. Had this had a combustion engine, it could have been absolutely incredible, but unfortunately yes, it's an electric vehicle. Now one thing for certain is that we do get a better idea of when this car is officially coming to the game. Of course it does make mention that it is going to be shown off at the World Series Finals for round 2 in Berlin in a couple of weeks time, which means that more than likely it will launch on the following Thursday, which will be the final Thursday of the month, which I think is the 25th of September. Again, I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure that is spot on, and I think that's when we're actually going to get the car in game. Now I'm going to take a look and kind of break down some of the more hidden details that was in this trailer, because it's stuff that we've not really had a good look at before. But before we do get into that, of course I'm going to break down the stats and what we know so far about the Opel Corsa GSE Vision Gran Turismo. What a mouthful that is. So it is based kind of on the 2027 Opel Corsa. Of course that will then be launched as the next generation at the beginning of 2027. Of course it won't be as aggressive or looked exact as what we're seeing here, but it will have some of the design elements from the Vision Gran Turismo put into the real world production car. It is based on the upcoming STLA small platform. This will also be used by the likes of Peugeot, I believe, and they're basically bringing the GSE branding back with this car properly in a more performance version. I believe it has come back in at least one other car, which I want to say was the Grandland, but again we haven't seen it to its full potential in terms of absolute ridiculous performance. Again, it is an electric vehicle with 4-wheel drive, 800 brake horsepower, a 0 to 60 time of 2 seconds, a top speed of 199 miles per hour, and it of course does feature that active aero diffuser and rear wing. It's also incredibly light for an electric vehicle at just under 1200 kilograms, So stats wise, I do have to admit that is impressive, but of course the big kicker is the fact that it is an electric vehicle, and whilst yes it's incredibly lightweight for an electric vehicle, that's not going to make it any better in terms of Gran Turismo 7. I do feel like Opel and Polyphony, if they were coming together to design this vehicle, should have gone the route of like the hybrid Rally 1 cars we saw when they first launched. I feel like giving this a combustion engine, especially with a hybrid system, would have been much more impressive and would have hyped up the return of Opel much more. Again, in terms of the design being a hatchback type design with very aggressive aero, I feel like coupling that with a kind of hybrid system, combustion engine and all that good stuff would have been absolutely awesome. Unfortunately, it's an electric vehicle and I feel like it's just kind of doomed to fail from the get-go unless they do something seriously impressive with it. So in terms of details and breaking them down, we're going to look at some of the promotional material first and then some of the trailer material. So let's start off with the overall design. Of course, this one right here does have the Vauxhall badge on it, not the Opel. Of course, they are not coming to the game, only the Opel variant will. It's again very much a hatchback vehicle, incredibly aggressive aero. For me, really fitting of the likes of the Group B era rally cars, but unfortunately electric only. And then we go into the actual cockpit. The racy aggressive vibe does carry on to the inside. Of course, we've got the whole kind of, you know, plus and minus on the pedals. I think that's a really nice little neat touch. We've got the compass effect there on the right hand side of the driver, as well as what seems to be some incredibly quirky lighting. As we can see here on the dashboard, it lights up saying go. Also in the trailer, and in a moment I'm going to point out some more of that lighting. So there seems to be a lot going on inside this car. If we go around to the back, now we can see the diffuser and rear wing when it's in its default position. Of course, these will be moving out, and we see a lot of that in the trailer where this kind of huge rear wing kind of goes up and down and the diffuser kind of pops out from the back. It looks incredibly aggressive, and again, overall I feel like it's a genuinely decent looking vehicle. So that was the promotional material. Let's get into what we saw in the trailer, and definitely we're going to touch on the active aero first. This is definitely one of the bigger talking points when it comes to the GSE. Of course, we do see in action here, we see that the spoiler's gone into a more upright position, much higher overall to give you much more downforce. We also see that the diffuser has gone from its inwards position and has started to come outwards. Of course, when you're at high speeds and such, it does seem to do it also under braking from what we can see in the trailer. So I can certainly see why this is such a massive talking point, and I think it looks absolutely awesome. I'm not going to deny that, as much as I probably won't actually use this vehicle. Now, yes, I just said I won't use it that much because it's an electric vehicle, but I do have to admit the one place where I might actually use it is in VR. This car seems to be an absolute treat for VR players. Again, like we saw with the kind of go lighting that was lit up on the dashboard, we see that there's more of it all around the front of this car. It seems that this huge kind of whitey grey bar that kind of encircles the driver is going to be lit up with all sorts of different stuff when you're actually using it, which I think is very impressive. And again, as mentioned, there just seems to be a lot going on inside this very racy, aggressive interior. So certainly if you are a main VR player, you're probably going to have a much better time with this car than someone that doesn't have it, unfortunately. Again, there just seems to be so much going on inside of that cockpit. Another plus point for VR players is that a lot of the moving parts of this car, inside at least, do seem to be exposed for the player to actually see them in action, which I think is always a great thing. I can't always make out exactly where a lot of these exposed parts are, but the one that I do know for sure is from this image here. As we can see, it is right out that huge wide open back window. We've got the rear wing there, as well as the diffusers setting off all of the sparks. So there's going to be a lot going on inside of this cockpit. So certainly if you are a VR player, you're going to have a much better time with this one. So there we go then, official confirmation from Polyphony themselves. This car will be shown off a little later this month, which I think definitely lends it to being actually released properly at the end of this month in an update. Of course, we do then get official confirmation that only one of the two manufacturers is coming to the game, so there will be no Vauxhall, but Opel will be returning. Of course, this does open up the doors for the potential of other classic Opel models finally coming to Gran Turismo 7. Hopefully we get that Calibra DTM to go alongside the likes of the Alfa Romeo. Of course, Gran Turismo 2 players will know that one very, very well, so hopefully that does become a reality. And of course, getting more manufacturers on board is always better for the future of Gran Turismo, meaning that they're hopefully able to secure more licenses. Anyway, that's going to be it from me today. Thank you so much for joining me for this Gran Turismo 7 news video. A huge thank you to all of my channel members on screen now, and a huge thank you to you guys at home. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.